In a previous video, I criticized the current integrated lander architecture chosen for crewed lunar landings. This vendor-driven approach concentrates high-performance vehicles, cryogenic propellants, and multiple immature technologies into a single vehicle. The result is a system with very little tolerance for failure. A tip-over or hard landing would likely result in loss of crew. In this video, I want to propose a different lunar landing architecture, one that improves the chances of crew survival across a wide range of landing mishaps and anomalies. I grew up watching Star Trek. In that series, the main spacecraft stays in orbit while a much smaller vehicle is used by the away team to land on a planet. This seems like a more sensible approach than landing large vehicles on the surface and taking off again. Large spacecraft can stay in lunar orbit for weeks, while a smaller, dedicated craft handles surface operations. Before explaining how this concept would work in practice, I want to briefly look at the Apollo architecture and explain why, despite its success, it doesn't offer the level of robustness we need for a sustained lunar presence. Apollo used a split-stage architecture. The descent stage carried the ascent stage on top of it. After completing surface operations, the crew would transfer into the ascent stage and launch into orbit. This is an improvement over integrated landers, but there are still too many off-nominal situations that lead to loss of crew. For instance, if the lunar module tipped over on touchdown, the ascent stage would also be compromised and likely unusable. We can do much better than that. Proposed lunar landing system, separate vehicle architecture. The separate vehicle architecture uses two distinct vehicles, a dedicated descent vehicle and a separate ascent vehicle. This approach places crew safety and survivability at the center of the design. Simplicity and reliability are prioritized over maximum performance. Both vehicles use simple pressure-fed engines and storable propellants. Redundancy is built into the architecture rather than into a single complex vehicle. The descent vehicle includes multiple independent exit routes, including a ceiling emergency hatch, and is designed to maintain crew survivability even in degraded landing scenarios such as tip-overs, angled landings, or hard touchdowns. The Ascent module is pre-positioned on the lunar surface months or even years in advance. It uses a simple pressure-fed engine and storable propellants, allowing it to remain usable for long periods. This vehicle serves a dual purpose. It provides the crew with a return to orbit capability and functions as a surface safe haven. While each mission only requires one descent vehicle, the architecture includes multiple pre-positioned ascent modules at key locations across the lunar surface. These assets provide redundancy for both short-stay and long-stay crews and offer a genuine evacuation option for astronauts who may be far from the main base. The descent vehicle. The crewed descent vehicle is a dedicated lunar landing craft designed exclusively for safe descent and crew survivability. Because the ascent capability is provided by a pre-positioned ascent module already on the lunar surface, the descent vehicle can be optimized purely for safe landing, crew protection, and reliable egress, even in degraded landing conditions. The vehicle uses a low-slung design inspired by the Dynetics alpaca concept. Its low center of gravity provides improved landing stability on the uneven or sloped terrain found near the lunar south pole. The short vertical distance between the crew module and the surface also allows for easier and lower risk crew movement during both entering and exiting the craft. The propulsion system uses pressure-fed engines and storable propellants, with multiple engines clustered at the base to provide a total thrust of 40 kilonewtons. The vehicle has a mass budget of 8 tons, of which approximately 4,600 kilos is propellant. Because it does not carry the Ascent module, its overall mass is much lower than previous crewed lunar landings. For comparison, the Apollo lunar module had a total mass of around 15 tons. The descent vehicle is designed to land close to a pre-positioned ascent module, ideally within 500 meters and no more than 2 kilometers away. This distance allows the crew to reach the ascent module at the end of the mission, or, in an emergency, either by a lunar terrain vehicle or by surface EVA. While modern landers can achieve meter-level landing accuracy, the architecture also includes multiple pre-positioned ascent modules for redundancy. If the landing results in a tip-over, or the vehicle comes to rest near large boulders, the descent vehicle could lose power or communications. In that scenario, the crew can transfer to a nearby ascent module, which provides life support, power, communications, and, at the end of the mission, the capability to return to lunar orbit. Redundancy and emergency systems. One advantage of the separate vehicle architecture is the design flexibility it provides when dealing with off-nominal situations. The descent vehicle features two side hatches located on opposite flanks. Both are designed for routine crew ingress and egress. If one hatch is damaged, blocked by terrain, or becomes inaccessible due to the vehicle's final attitude, the crew can use the second hatch without problems. In addition, the vehicle includes a dedicated emergency escape hatch in the ceiling. This hatch is fitted with a frangible panel, including linear-shaped charges for clean, rapid separation. The ceiling hatch serves several important functions. It provides an exit route if the vehicle has tipped over or landed at a steep angle, and it enables rapid cabin depressurization to extinguish an internal fire or purge a contaminated atmosphere following a hard landing or structural damage. Because the crew lands already wearing EVA suits, they remain protected while the cabin is vented to vacuum. This level of egress redundancy and emergency depressurization capability is only possible because of the separate vehicle architecture. In an integrated lander design, where the same vehicle must also function as the ascent stage, adding explosive charges to the lander for emergency escape is not an option. Ascent vehicle and safe haven. Ascent vehicles are pre-positioned on the lunar surface in advance, using heavy cargo landers. This provides redundancy independent of the descent vehicle. With integrated landers, such as Starship HLS or Blue Origin's Mark II, crew survival depends entirely on a single vehicle. The separate vehicle's architecture, by contrast, places multiple independent survival assets on the surface. Because there is currently no heavy-duty rover capable of moving large payloads across the surface, each cargo lander can deliver only one ascent vehicle. These vehicles are fitted with a radioisotope heating unit to survive the lunar night. In Phase 1 of lunar base development, before a power grid is operational, the safe havens function only during the lunar day. This is not a limitation in practice, as crew landings will only take place during daylight until nuclear reactors and a surface power grid are established. Each ascent vehicle serves as an emergency shelter. For example, if an LTV breaks down several kilometers from the base, the crew can take shelter inside the nearest ascent module until another LTV arrives, or, if necessary, be evacuated to orbit. In Phase 2, once the lunar power grid becomes available, the ascent modules can be connected to it, providing continuous 24/7 safe haven capability. Beyond their primary role as a return-to-orbit vehicle, the Ascent modules provide several additional functions. These include life support, floodlights and high-definition cameras for situational awareness, wireless and direct-to-earth communications, and retroreflectors to assist with accurate navigation and landings. These features also support landing operations by allowing the landing zone to be surveyed in advance and giving mission control an additional vantage point for monitoring both the landing and surface activities. Deployment of ascent vehicles to the lunar surface. There is no need for dedicated cargo missions to deliver the ascent modules. NASA will already be conducting regular cargo landings at sites of scientific and operational interest using heavy lift lunar landers, such as Blue Origin's Mark II and Cargo Starship. Because each ascent module weighs only 4.5 tons, they can be manifested on existing heavy cargo missions without requiring additional flights. As more cargo landers arrive at the moon, the network of ascent vehicles and safe havens grows naturally over time. Distributed Lunar Safe Haven Network and LTV transit routes. The separate vehicle architecture prioritizes crew survivability through redundancy and distributed risk. However, deploying multiple safe havens across the lunar South Pole region presents a practical challenge. The most efficient deployment method would require a currently missing class of lunar vehicle, a heavy-duty rover capable of transporting multi-ton payloads from the landing site to their final locations. NASA currently lacks this capability. Without a heavy logistics rover, each heavy cargo lander can deliver only one Ascent module, and only at the landing location itself. While this limits initial flexibility, it is still enough to begin deploying a safe haven network, which can then expand gradually over time. Ascent modules would be pre-positioned along primary transit routes near resource-rich areas and at key waypoints and junctions. LTV routes for science, exploration, or construction missions would be deliberately planned to pass within walking distance or short LTV range of one or more safe havens. Crew safety. The distributed safe haven network provides critical protection for astronauts when accidents or mishaps occur on the lunar surface. This includes scenarios such as LTV breakdowns, EVA suit malfunctions, medical emergencies, loss of communications with the base, or the need for emergency evacuation while far from the main habitat. By deploying multiple pre-positioned Ascent modules and safe havens, science and exploration missions can operate further from the base with greater confidence. This concept directly addresses one of the major weaknesses of current integrated lander designs: the lack of meaningful backup options when problems arise far from the main base. Comparison: Antarctic operations versus Lunar Safe Haven Network. Antarctica is one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Distances are vast, weather can change rapidly, temperatures are extreme, and rescue can take days or even weeks. Because of this, national Antarctic programs deliberately design their operations with layered redundancy and pre-positioned contingency assets. This approach has evolved over decades because experience showed that relying on a single central base and rapid rescue was unrealistic in such an extreme environment. Scientific missions away from the main base are inherently hazardous, and bad weather can prevent aircraft from flying for extended periods. As a result, Antarctic operations make use of emergency caches, field huts, and satellite stations positioned along routes. Expeditions are planned so that parties pass close to these shelters. This is directly comparable to the proposed Lunar Safe Haven Network. In both cases, the core safety principle is that shelter proximity must be considered when planning any excursion away from the main base. The Antarctic model demonstrates that in extreme, remote environments, the most effective safety strategy is to create a distributed network of shelters and supplies, rather than concentrating risk in a single vehicle or base. The Lunar Safe Haven concept follows the same logic, but goes further by also providing a return to orbit capability. Bonus: low lunar orbit rescue using loitering descent vehicle. As the NASA Office of Inspector General noted in its March 2026 report, NASA currently has no capability to rescue astronauts stranded in low lunar orbit in the event of a life-threatening emergency. The separate vehicle architecture can directly address this gap. By stationing a descent vehicle in low lunar orbit as a dedicated rescue asset, we can provide a meaningful evacuation option for crew stranded in orbit. If an Orion capsule or other spacecraft suffers a major systems failure and cannot return to Earth, the crew could dock with a loitering descent vehicle and be evacuated to the lunar surface. This dual-use approach, where the descent vehicle serves both as a primary crew lander and as a permanently loitering rescue asset in low lunar orbit, is only possible because of the separate vehicle's architecture and the use of storable propellants. In Phase 1, the descent vehicle would operate as a dedicated rescue asset in low lunar orbit. Evacuation to the lunar surface would buy NASA time to launch a rescue mission from Earth. A rescue vehicle could reach lunar orbit in 4 days, well within the 14-day lunar daylight period, during which safe havens remain operational. In later phases, with a mature lunar base and power grid in place, stranded crew could remain on the surface for an extended period and return to Earth on the next scheduled mission, similar to how the Boeing Starliner crew remained on the ISS until a later Crew Dragon flight. The separate vehicle architecture directly addresses concern raised in the NASA OIG report that current integrated lander plans do not resolve. By giving the descent vehicle two critical roles, primary crew lander and low lunar orbit rescue asset, the architecture improves overall program value while providing genuine contingency options at both the surface and orbital levels. Comparison with other architectures. The separate vehicle architecture offers clear advantages in several critical safety areas when compared with both Apollo's split-stage design and current integrated lander proposals. No complicated or immature technologies are used. Both vehicles employ simple pressure-fed engines with few moving parts, prioritizing high reliability over peak performance. The descent vehicle uses a low-slung design that provides excellent landing stability on uneven or sloped terrain, along with easy ingress and egress through multiple hatches. A frangible ceiling panel provides a last resort escape route and enables emergency depressurization. Crew safety is further supported by positioning an Ascent module approximately 500 meters away, easily reachable by LTV or, in the worst case, by surface EVA within a few hours. By contrast, an Apollo-style split-stage lander stacks the Ascent module on top of the descent stage. If the descent stage lands in a degraded state or tips over, the Ascent stage is also likely compromised. The split-stage architecture also suffers from a high center of gravity, which reduces stability and increases the risk of tipping over on slopes or uneven terrain, conditions that are likely near the lunar South Pole. Integrated landers such as Starship HLS and Blue Origin's Mark II go further by combining descent and ascent functions in a single vehicle. Any significant damage on landing therefore results in loss of crew, as there is no redundant return capability either on the surface or in orbit. Starship compounds this problem by relying on a single elevator high on the vehicle as the only means of reaching the surface, creating yet another single point of failure. The separate vehicle architecture, by contrast, assumes that something will go wrong and builds in credible contingencies for degraded landings. Current integrated lander plans, however, appear to assume that everything will work as intended, a dangerous assumption that leaves little margin for the wide range of off-nominal situations that could occur. Crew safety in degraded landing scenarios. The separate vehicle's architecture assumes that accidents can happen and builds mitigations and contingencies into both the vehicles and the overall system design. The lunar South Pole presents significant landing hazards, including large boulders, long shadows, and low sun angles. These conditions increase the likelihood of bad landings. In contrast to both Apollo-style split-stage landers and current integrated designs, a dedicated descent vehicle can be designed with an ultra-low center of gravity. A wide, low-slung body keeps most of the vehicle's mass close to the ground. By the time of landing, the propellant tanks are nearly empty, further lowering the center of gravity. This provides improved resistance to tipping on slopes or during uneven leg loading. This stability advantage is particularly valuable in the lunar South Pole region, where slopes, craters, and boulders are common. The architecture also becomes more robust as more LTVs and pre-positioned ascent modules become available on the surface, allowing the crew to reach alternative safe havens if needed. By comparison, integrated landers such as Lunar Starship offer the lowest crew survivability in the event of a landing mishap. This is due to their single vehicle architecture, high center of gravity, concentration of complex and immature technologies, and lack of independent recovery options either on the surface or in orbit. Final thoughts. The separate vehicle architecture is anti-fragile. It assumes that things will go wrong and builds meaningful contingencies into the system. By contrast, NASA's current vendor-driven integrated lander architecture only works if everything goes right. This new architecture has high resilience to landing anomalies and provides strong protection against the hazards of the lunar South Pole, when landing stability is critical. A tip-over or degraded landing is no longer likely to result in loss of crew or loss of mission. the crew can simply continue operations from a nearby Ascent vehicle. The 2024 Boeing Starliner incident illustrates why such contingencies matter. After a major propulsion failure, the crew were able to use ISS as a safe haven and remain there until a later Crew Dragon mission returned them to Earth. Had a similar failure occurred without a nearby safe haven, the consequences could have been far more severe. The separate vehicle architecture directly addresses this vulnerability by providing genuine contingency options at both the surface and orbital levels. What do you think? Is a distributed network of Ascent vehicles and safe havens the right approach for Artemis? Or should NASA continue with its current integrated lander plans? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this space video, consider buying me a coffee to help fund more episodes like this. The link is in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe so you'll see our upcoming videos. We make videos every week covering the space industry with an emphasis on the smaller space startups that aren't covered so well on other channels. See you soon.